And also we have here with us Lisa. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, thank you.
Thanks. It's a pleasure having you here. So before we get started, and as I said, while we are waiting people to join us, we're going to do a very quick activity. So we want to ask you to show us from where you are connected from, right? So if you can access the link you're going to share on the chat, you can connect to this and good. Yeah, you can also use the QR code as well. And you'll be able to select the place where you are connected from, right? So just want to have an idea from where you are speaking right now. And also you can follow us or watch us at the same time from YouTube. The guys are going to share the link in a minute. So interesting because from YouTube you can also use the closed caption feature. So even though if you don't feel comfortable with English, you can select your language and just follow the subtitles. Be easier. Oh yeah, hi Eric. Yeah, in case you, for any reason you are not able to access the tool, you can also use the chat. That works fine as well. So feel free. Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, we kind of are expecting a lot of people from Brazil, but it's also good to see people connecting from. I guess it might be from London or somewhere around that. I also forgot to ask you, Lisa, because I know you are from your time zone is UTC -5, but what is the region or state, city?
I'm in Northwest Vermont, so I'm very close to Canada. So it's in New England, so we're sort of north and east of New York.
Oh, okay, nice.
It's a very pretty area. We have a big lake, Lake Champlain, and we have the Adirondack Mountains on the New York side of Lake Champlain, and I can see those from here, so we're quite close to New York. And then on the other side we have the Green Mountains, and Vermont is called the Green Mountain State because we have the Green Mountains.
Oh, that might be so beautiful.
We feel very lucky.
It's good to chilling out, you know. Yeah. Yeah, just following from the chat, I can see people from Campinas, Paraná, Florianópolis, Porto Alegre, Paraná again, Vermont from the US. Oh, that was you, Lisa.
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah. Porto Alegre, São Leopoldo here. Oh, Portugal. Hi, William. Canoas, Belo Horizonte. Montevideo, Uruguay. Hi, Marcelo. Jorge from Fundão, Portugal. Rafael from Porto, Portugal again. That's cool. Can you just see once again, Fabrice? For the, I mean, sorry, I mean the world map. Okay, cool. Just trying to match that one from the right. Not the expert, but let me try to guess. Oh. Okay, I think we can get started like 8 minutes. I think it's okay. So guys, as I mentioned, you can also use the same tool for asking questions. Lisa said that it's fine. You can open the microphone to ask questions during the presentation. That's fine. But for any reason, if you are a little bit shy or maybe you are not confident about your English, for any reason, you can also send your question through that tool, the same tool, and I'll be translate that or asking Lisa at the end of the presentation. Is that fine for you? So just a little bit about our community, Goods has. I know that in English might sound a little bit weird if you try to translate that to guts. But basically what it means is software, if I would translate literally, might be something like software testing group of users, which means a QA community from south of Brazil. So we are from Rio Grande do Sul, south of Brazil, but also we have like many great QA communities in Brazil, from São Paulo, Belo Horizonte, Santa Catarina. So thank you guys for joining us once again. If you, for any reason you don't know, Lisa Crispin is the co-author with Jeanette Gregory of Agile Testing, Condensed, which is the most recent book, and also Agile Test and More Agile Testing, which I'm a big fan, Lisa. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Yeah, and also again with Janet, Lisa co-founded the Agile Testing Fellowship community, which really, guys, is an amazing community. And Lisa, it's an honor to have you here with us. This is our first event in English. I hope everything goes well. And also the first event of 2021. So thanks so much for your time. And yeah, over to you.
Muito obrigada. Falo pouco de português de Portugal. Estou a aprender a falar português.
Well, this is good progress. I could understand.
I can read it better than I can understand. I got some words when you were talking earlier, though. So I will just share my screen. Let's see. Can everyone see my slides? Yeah?
Yep, I can see that. Yep.
Great, great. So I'm quite honored to be speaking at the first one in English, the first one of 2021, which we hope will be a better year. So maybe someday I will be able to present in Portuguese. That's a goal, right? And so this talk is using some material not only from me and Janet, but also from Alan Page and Brent Jensen, who have a podcast called the A/B Testing Podcast. So I'll talk more about that. You already heard about me, and oh, I didn't fix my slide. Yeah, I did fix my slide. And do feel free to get in touch with me anytime by email, by Twitter, by LinkedIn. I'm Lisa Crispin on LinkedIn as well. So I'm always happy to chat with people. So, and love to hear your experiences. We do have our Agile Testing Fellowship. We have our course, Agile Testing for the Whole Team, and we do have partners in Brazil that do this training for on our behalf. That's a live training course, which can be done remotely. So you can learn more at agiletestingfellows.com. So today I'd like to talk about these 10 principles of Agile testers. This is something that Janet and I talked about in our first book. And the modern testing principles are from Alan Page and Brent Jensen, which they developed in probably a year's worth of episodes in their podcast. And they now share on their website, and Alan talks about it. And I listened as they developed these principles and was struck by, I think they're pretty compatible with the principles that Janet and I talked about. So I'm going to just talk about how they relate and how Janet and I think that they can help you and your teams succeed with testing. So I'd like to start by talking about the Agile testing principles. And in our book, Agile Testing, we called these the 10 principles for Agile testers. And so at that time, that book is more than 10 years old now. And at that time, many testers were still on a separate team. And so having a cross-functional team with tester as part of that team was still rather new. And so there was a mindset shift to testing being more of a continual process, like all the way around that, what we call the DevOps loop or the continuous testing loop. And this picture is from our Quick Tools for Agile Testers, which is available on our book website, agiletester.ca. And we have that translated into many languages, just as we do our latest book. And so you can go and download the whole handout. This is just one part of it. But these are our principles. And so,
Lisa?
Yes.
So sorry for interrupting you. It's just, are you moving the slides? Because
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not sure if it's only me, but I can only see the first one.
That's not
I'm
good.
sure, guys, if it's only for me.
Okay,
sorry.
Let me try this again. Thanks for letting me know. I didn't know. I'm just going to try sharing my whole desktop. Maybe that'll be better. You saw earlier when we tested it that I could move them, right?
Yeah. Here we go.
Can you see them now?
Yeah. Now it's working fine.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay, well, I already talked to these, but you can see the cute donkey and dragon pictures. But so these are the 10 principles that I was talking about that are available on our book website as well. And there they are in Portuguese. And so I'll go through these in more detail, but I'd like you to stop for a moment and consider them of which ones do you apply now? Which ones might seem useful for your team? So I was going to say share those in the chat. I'm not sure I can see the chat now, but you can see it for each other. I think because I'm sharing my screen, I can see y'all's faces, but I can't see the chat.
Do you want me to
Oh,
post
wait, now I
anything?
can.
That okay.
Yes, now I can see the chat. Hooray. So if anybody is doing any of these things now, are you getting continuous feedback from maybe from your automated regression tests? Do you feel like your team is delivering value to your customer? Face-to-face communication is hard in our remote environment, but we can do it over Zoom or whatever video. Having courage, keep doing the simplest thing that could possibly work, continuously improving, responding to change, self-organizing, focusing on people and enjoyment. And I'll talk about these in more detail. So let's talk about the modern testing principles. Hopefully you're seeing a screen that says that. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is just a brief overview of what Brent and Alan have come up with for their modern testing principles. And they like to say that these aren't really modern because a lot of them aren't really new and they're not necessarily even only about testing. But this is what they see testers need to think about in our modern world of continuous delivery, continuous everything. And so they based this on Janet's and my books and then added their own things to these. So for example, they're very keen on data science and learning about how are your customers using your product in production, for example. And so they see the need for some new skills that we may not have had before. And they want testers to move into even a more of a coaching role of helping people who aren't testers learn how to test. And I'm going to explain these in more detail as well. So these are some of the principles. Their motto, Alan and Brent's motto, is accelerating the delivery of shippable quality. So we want to do frequent releases, small releases of value to customers. And they see testers in a more traditional role. Testers have been a safety net for developers. So the developers might be a little sloppy and not try so hard to find their own bugs or prevent bugs because they can throw it over to the testers and the testers will catch them. It's like in a circus, if you had somebody walking on a tightrope, as long as there's a net below them, they don't have to be very careful. What if we remove that net? Well, we'd have to lower the tightrope and make it safer for them, but developers can and should learn how to test, even if they have testers to help them. And so we can help developers learn those skills. So this is how we're a force for continual improvement. Okay, come on, there we go. These are the more longer version of their principles, caring deeply about quality culture, the customer. This is one that they really emphasize, only the customer can judge the quality of our product. A lot of times we think as quality assurance that we can judge it, but they believe only the customer can judge it. They use data, like I say, a lot. And then their seventh principle is we expand testing abilities and know-how across the team, understanding that this may reduce or eliminate the need for a dedicated testing specialist. And for a lot of people, they hear this, eliminate the need for a dedicated testing specialist, and that's kind of shocking. So I'm curious how you feel about that idea, and if you want to share your feelings in the chat or the other tool that you have. So that's one of my donkeys, my burros, modeling what some people might think of when they hear that statement. So I'd like to talk about how these testings relate with each other. And again, if I've said anything you don't quite understand, feel free to ask a question at any time, and we'll have time for questions afterwards as well. So let's talk about these two sets of principles, agile testing and modern testing. We'll look at them one by one. So providing continuous feedback. We need continuous feedback to have continuous improvement, which for me is what agile development is all about. Always doing a little bit better. So we need short feedback loops. We need to know quickly if the change that we want to deploy for our customers is working as we expected. And as we move towards continuous delivery, so delivering frequently, some companies now are deploying to production several times per day even. How can we possibly fit testing into that? So we need to have those short feedback loops, but we also need to figure out how to feel confident about that. There are good practices that we can do, like pair programming, mob or ensemble programming, which are the very shortest feedback loops because you have another person or multiple people there to give you feedback right away. And those help with the principles of the modern testing principles of improving the business and being a force for continuous improvement. So providing feedback as testers, we're really, really good at that. And so I encourage you to give your team feedback as quickly as you can. So I like to, rather than file a bug report, I like to get on Zoom with the developer and show them the problem that I'm seeing, for example. So we want to have as quick a feedback as we can. Our agile testing principle number 2 is focusing on delivering value to the customer. And this supports the idea that the customer is the judge of product quality. And 20 years ago, or a little more than that, when I was more of traditional quality assurance person, that would have really kind of shocked me because I felt like I was the judge of quality, but it makes sense. We think we know what's valuable to the customer, but only the customer can say for sure. And thanks to today's technology, we can learn what the customers are doing, what they think, because we have all these all this technology that lets us do logging, monitoring, observability, analytics. We can actually track. If we have a web application, we can track what our users are actually doing. So we can really learn a lot about this. And we have to remember that our products may have more than one type of customer or people in different personas or different roles. And we need to satisfy maybe customers inside our business and outside our business. So this supports the modern testing principle number 5, only the customer can judge quality. And so when my teams are doing our pre-grooming or pre-planning meetings, the first question we ask for each new feature, each new story is, why are we doing this? What's the purpose? What's valuable here for our customer? That's where we want to make sure we focus our testing. So those relate to the modern testing principles 5, customer is king, and 6, data trumps intuition. We're going to use data from production to help drive our future development and drive our focus on testing. Face-to-face communication using video nowadays is the most effective way to communicate. And so testing practitioners can help accelerate the team and encourage continuous improvement by working together with everybody on the team and even people outside of our teams, maybe people in operations, maybe people in the database area, maybe people in the sales department. So it's a key component to building our culture of quality. And we can do remote pairing and remote mob or ensemble programming quite effectively with our modern technology. And even if your people where you work are really busy, maybe they can spend 30 minutes or an hour pairing with you on something to improve that communication and get that quick feedback. So these relates to the modern testing principles of number 2, no bottlenecks. Number 3, always learn and improve. And number 4, lead a quality culture. So this is the things that we can do as testers. Courage, really important. That was our agile testing principle number 4. And I talked about that safety net idea. It takes a lot of courage to stop being that safety net, to say, wait a minute, developer, you need to also do some testing. You need to focus on building quality into the product and preventing bugs. We need to shift our mindset to bug prevention rather than detecting bugs after the fact. Otherwise, we can never really be successful with continuous delivery, with agile development in the long term. So they need to be responsible for their code correctness. And this can be done with practices such as test-driven development. So the modern testing principle number 7, where we say, oh, we're going to help everybody on the team learn testing, and maybe they won't even need us anymore as testers or testing specialists. That would take courage, right? Because it makes it sound like we won't have a job. I think most teams will always need at least one testing specialist. I'm not worried about not having a job. But at the same time, I've found it very beneficial to help people on my team, for example, learn how to do exploratory testing, or do a better job of designing automated tests, or learn how to do accessibility or security testing. So I can share those skills with my team. And you know, the quality can't just be left to a few people. The whole team needs to be focused on them. And it shouldn't be a tester working over the weekend to make sure that we're safe, we're confident to release our new changes. So everyone can test.
Lisa,
Yes.
If I might ask you one question about the previous slides, based on what you just said, is that correct, or is that too wrong to say that QAs would work as a, like, say, quality assurance consultants to the team, in the sense that they will guide the team, not only developers, including POs or any other stakeholder in the project, towards that quality assurance mindset?
I do feel like we can be more effective if we take a consulting role. And that means we have to improve some of our non-testing skills, like be better at facilitating. So perhaps we can hold workshops for the team on things like exploratory testing, or just pair with them. Let's test this together, for example. And I know probably many people who are watching this, maybe they're the only tester on the team, or maybe there are a lot more developers than there are testers. I see that more and more. We can't scale, we can't test the output. I can't personally test the output of 10 or 20 developers, but if we work together and I help them learn to test and put on their tester hat, then they can take on some of that responsibility. And that has been working a lot better for me, to try to scale the ability to test the output of a team. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And just to invite people, guys, don't be shy.
Don't
You
be shy.
can
Yeah.
ask question at any time, and as we shared, you can also use the link, and then I can ask you on your behalf. Okay. Thank you.
So our agile testing principle number 5 is keep it simple. That was a principle from extreme programming. Do the simplest thing that could possibly work. And it's not obvious to me how this relates to the modern testing principles. And I think a lot of people looking at the modern testing principles may feel kind of overwhelmed by them. So start simple. Start with one small step. I think that's always the best way. No matter what we're doing, trying something new, one baby step at a time is good. And I think that can be hard, but what I try to do, I was just talking about this yesterday with my team, is well, how can we be, my team works together in a mob or ensemble. So we'll have 3 or 4 people working together on the same story. And right now we have 2 of those, we call them blobs, but 2 of those ensembles going during the day, working on different stories. And so we're talking about doing an experiment. What if we all work together one story at a time? Might we be more effective? So just proposing simple experiments. Let's try that for a week and see how it does. See how many stories we get through. Let's try it both ways and see what's more effective. So simple experiments. Don't try to fix all your problems at once. Just pick one thing that's blocking you the most. Try an experiment to make that problem a little less of a problem. We've talked already a lot about the Agile testing principle number 6, continuous improvement, always trying to do a better job. And that's a principle shared by both lists. Modern testing has it as number 3. And I think it's a core practice for any team embracing Agile development, embracing a DevOps culture, wanting to be a higher performing team. And I think this is where retrospectives are especially valuable. Let's look at what is working for us, what's not working for us, what experiments can we try to make things better. And as a tester, it's not necessarily my job to facilitate a retrospective, but I have facilitation skills. So I have in the past many times volunteered to facilitate the retrospective and help the team think about how to improve. And again, these are kind of the kind of skills that we can use to become more of a testing consultant and coach. So I encourage you to learn facilitation skills and practice them by offering to facilitate meetings or retrospectives. I think this is one of the most valuable ways we can improve. So this relates to modern testing principle number 3, always learn and improve.
Lisa,
All right.
just to share something about the previous slide, because my core is work as a QA. And it was when I started doing facilitation to the team meetings, I just got so excited, interested about that. And today I'm work as a Scrum Master, for example.
Oh, wow. That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of a journey. Started as a QA, and then I work in teams where we didn't have a Scrum Master or someone to facilitate, and I was doing that, and just okay, I think I can do that. So yeah, so it was an interesting transition.
Yeah, and still a coaching role, and still a very good place to help the team improve quality and think about quality all the time. Yeah, I like that. All right, so responding to change, we all are buffeted by change, and it's an integral part of continuous improvement. So in my experience, again, I've already said this, like the best way to improve is to identify our biggest problem, the biggest thing in our way, make it visible. Put up a big sign, put up a big dashboard. Maybe you have a lot of failing tests. Get that in front of everybody. Nowadays it has to be virtual, but and then try some experiments to chip away at that problem, make it smaller. Be sure to measure, set some goals of what do you think your experiment will achieve. Maybe we believe that by practicing behavior-driven development, where we write business-facing tests to guide development, that we will improve our cycle time, or we will have fewer stories rejected by the product owner. So we can set a goal for that. Let's have a 10% shorter cycle time within a month, for example. Back in the day when I was working in an office and our team was struggling to have a passing continuous integration every day, we had literally put a big red sign on our team physical task board if the build was failing, to make that visible so that we would address that problem. So you have to do that in a more virtual way now, but you can use Slack or your project tracking tool, or there are different ways that you can approach that. So these relate to the agile test or the modern testing principle number 3, always learn and improve. And also number 6, data trumps intuition. So let's get data on how our improvements are going or how our quality is looking. Self-organizing, this is a basic principle of agile development. And we hope that teams are allowed to be autonomous, to self-organize around their mission to deliver a quality product that helps solve customer problems. That's what we're trying to do. And that really relates to all the modern testing principles. Teams that learn the business domain, and this is one thing that teams I've been on have tried to do, we can learn more. What does the customer need? How can we provide more value to that customer? And these teams are likely to be more successful. So, I mean, I've been on a team that started as complete chaos, but we devoted time to learning the business domain and to learn how to self-organize. And we did things like deciding to focus on finishing one story at a time, using our retrospectives, and over time, we solved our problems as we went along. And we did this together and tried experiments. For example, a lot of agile teams, including the one I was on, get into what we call a mini waterfall. So you have a 2-week sprint and you find all the stories are delivered on the next to the last day of the sprint, and now you're madly testing to try to have those ready for release. And so my team agreed, okay, the first story has to be delivered by the second or third day of the sprint, and then we're going to test that, get that story finished, and move on to the next one. So these are the kind of experiments that you can try. And this relates to modern testing principle number 4, lead a quality culture. Number 10, focus on people. Again, that relates to all the modern testing principles. We know that it's really having the right people and letting them do their best work, not the tools they're using, not the methodology they're using, not the programming language. That's what makes a team successful. And there are numerous academic studies that back that up, including the State of DevOps survey. So we know that psychological safety is very important as a prerequisite to successful teams. You can use surveys to try to gauge that. Amy Edmondson is a good resource for things like that. She did all the research at Google about teams to discover that psychological safety was so important. So have a good Scrum Master to help you remove impediments and have empathy. So one reason I like to work closely with developers and pair with them and work in a mob or ensemble with them is I get empathy about their job is difficult too. They have big challenges writing that code, and that helps me work with them better. And our 10th agile testing principle is enjoyment. Joy is an important value of agile development, and the modern testing principles are a big challenge. It's kind of a call to action, and you shouldn't take that on if you wouldn't enjoy the journey of doing that. So the satisfaction of helping your company succeed, helping your customers solve their problems, helping your team succeed, growing that culture of quality, helping people who aren't testers learn testing skills. All of these things to me are hugely rewarding. And if you find that rewarding, I encourage you to move in that direction. And remember too, like humor helps us learn, and our jobs require a lot of learning every day. So we need to have fun with it. When bad things happen, we need to say, wow, that was fascinating. I'm curious how that problem happened. Let's look at that. Instead of getting into a blaming or stressed out mood, let's be curious. Let's see how we can prevent that problem from happening again. We need to play at work for our mental health. And my team now, every so often late in the afternoon, we say, oh, let's play Pictionary. And we get and play online Pictionary for a little while. You have to have fun. So these are principles, both agile testing and modern testing. They're not rules. And so don't follow them blindly, but you might find them useful to help guide your team. They're not going to go out of date. Our agile testing principles we wrote more than 10 years ago, and they're still relevant today. We might use different language in our principles now. We might use different words, but the principles themselves, I think, are the same. The meaning is the same. So whenever you have a problem or your team has a problem or you need to decide something, refer to the principles and see if any of them can guide you. So, as a quality group or testers on a team, or perhaps you have a quality team that's helping a lot of other engineering teams, we want to help them build quality in and take ownership of testing and take ownership of quality. So thinking of the principles, we can help lead the way for that. At my last job, we prepared a quality culture transition guide based on one that Alan Page had been done to help people look at all the dimensions of quality that are important and think where they are in each one, like how testable is their code, are they keeping up to date in all their tools and frameworks, lots of different dimensions, and help them decide where they want to focus on improving.
Lisa, we got two questions related to the previous slide.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, let me start from this one. I think it's related to the help non-testers learn to build quality in. Mm-hmm. And it says how to approach when a developer doesn't want to discuss about quality.
Well, this is a complicated issue because a lot of it depends on how are the developers being rewarded. So unfortunately, in many companies, the developers are basically told, write code, deliver features. They're not told that testing is part of their job. And so, of course, it's natural if they push back on say, well, no, that's not my job. If I do testing, I won't be able to write as much code, and then I won't be rewarded for that. And you need buy-in from management. So, for example, one of the places where I worked, I think it's pretty common that you have a skills matrix. So as to move up the career levels within your company, at each level, you need to have certain competencies at different skills. And so our development managers were really smart. And at each level for the developers, they had to have some competency in exploratory testing skills because the managers realized how important those were. And so that really motivated the developers. They turned to us testers and say, hey, can you teach me how to do exploratory testing? And then they really were happy to let us do workshops for them, let us pair with them, help them learn how to write exploratory testing charters, use personas, different heuristics for exploratory testing. So if your management is not being cooperative, if your management is really driving those developers, get deliver, you got to meet this deadline, it's going to be difficult. But we can be change agents. We can try to get our teams and our organizations to try to educate the managers on why is it important to make this investment in quality? Why is it important for the whole team to think about the testability and operability of our code? And it's not simple, not going to happen in a day, but I would encourage you to try to be a change agent.
Yeah, I do believe having the support from management level, it's very important for that.
And that somebody mentioned on the chat, test automation. I have found I've been lucky to work in teams where the developers practice test-driven development at the unit level, which is really important. But even so, they often didn't want to do any automation on the testing through the user interface level because it's more difficult and kind of a pain sometimes, depending on the tools that you're using. And I know that can be really hard, but I would just One of the things is to use testing tools that are developer friendly. So something, write your test scripts in the same programming language as your production code, for example, and then you have a better chance of getting the developers to collaborate with you. So there are different ways to approach that. But also bring it up to your team in your retrospectives, for example. Say, hey, we're having a bottleneck with testing. We can't get the tests automated quickly enough. We're having to leave that for the next sprint. It's making testing get further behind. How can we solve this problem? We've got a lot of smart people on this team with a lot of diverse skills and experience. How can we work together to solve that problem? And I apologize for my dog barking. But yeah, it's not, I don't want to make it sound like, oh, it's so simple. But
Sure,
just keep working. Try to, you have influence. Try to use your influence. And again, just one baby step at a time. Propose some small experiment. Oh, just go to what I've done in the past is I go to the friendliest developer on my team and say, hey, I'm thinking about using this test tool to automate our API tests. Would you spend an hour with me trying to automate tests for the story you're working on? And usually they're like, oh, sure. And then they might discover, oh, that tool's really easy to use. And wow, we found a bug. So then at stand up the next day, they say, hey, I paired with Lisa. We wrote these tests and found a bug, and you should look at this tool. So that's one of the ways I've influenced teams.
Good. Thank you, Lisa. I saw that, I think Camila, I guess
Yes,
she
Mrs.
wants to ask some question. Please go ahead.
Yes, you did one question that I wanted to do, but I have another question. It's not only the question that you talk about the developers when they don't want, but about executives. How we can bring this culture of quality for the executives, for the top of a company, when they don't see the value or enough value to us?
Yeah, it's been a long-term mission of mine. How do we educate executives? One of the reasons that Janet and I wrote our latest book and made it only 100 pages long is we hoped that more managers might read it. But we have to learn to speak their language. We have to present quality and how it affects the bottom line of the company. How can we help the company make more money? And putting it into business terms. And I'm going to put the name of a book in a chat. It's called Leading Quality. And it's by Ronald Cummings, John, and Oase Peer. And this is, again, a small book. And it's aimed at explaining quality and why it's important in a business perspective. So these two authors years ago did their own startup and it failed, and they realized it failed because of quality. They weren't testers, but they realized that their business failed because the quality was poor. So they educated themselves about testing, and they provided a lot of good ways that you can talk to the executives and explain why it's important. But it's really important. I've done a lot of trying to educate people and see, like, for example, how does technical debt affect our velocity, and that ends up costing the company money because we have we're not able to deliver features quickly enough, and we may lose business. We have opportunity costs, and when I can speak their language, they start to pay attention.
Thank you, Lisa.
Again, it's not simple, but it's something that we can do step by step. It's a great questions.
Yeah. We also, I guess, we have another question from Hodara, if I'm pronouncing correctly.
Hello. Actually, it's Vitor. I am with my girlfriend account.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay, that's fair.
So, hello first.
Hi.
My question is, did you think that us or we as QA, we get better when we start to learning more about development? Because I think it's a lot of these principles is it's applicable for development than developers. So as I growing my career as a QA, I think more I learn about development and fast feedback and simple design and a lot of things, I think I am improving my QA role. Did you think that it's right?
That's a really good point, and I do think it's right. Yesterday, the other tester on my team asked in Slack, what would be a good book to learn more of a developer mindset? How developers think about things. I thought it was a great question. The book I thought of was Pragmatic Programmer, but there are a lot of books that could do that. But definitely, I mean, right now, the job I took, I had kind of gotten away from the last two jobs. I'd kind of gotten away from hands-on, doing a lot of hands-on testing and a lot of hands-on automation. I kind of was taking more, like too much of a consulting role. I got too far away from the hands-on. And so I'm really trying to get back my skills. And a lot of people ask me, oh, do testers need to write code? I don't think you have to be a coder, and especially I personally want to revive my coding skills. I started out as a programmer, but when I work together, either in a pair or an ensemble with other developers, I don't have to write the code myself. Even if I'm driving and my hands are on the keyboard, they can tell me what to do. So I don't have to know how to code. However, I need to understand good design principles, like you say, because even designing automated tests, we need to use good coding practices, good coding design principles. So I understand those patterns and principles, and that helps me. Even if I don't know the syntax of the programming language they're using, I can still spot problems or make suggestions. So yeah, absolutely. And being able to use an IDE like Eclipse or IntelliJ or RubyMine, I think it's important to be able to use these tools because it helps us communicate with the developers and helps us work together with them. So I think that is really important. Janet and I call it technical awareness. So we don't have to be, we have coders on our team, we have our developers, but as testers, we need to be able to communicate well with them, and that involves understanding the architecture of our system at a high level, for example. So yeah, that's a great point. Really important.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. We have another question from William.
Okay.
Hey, hello. Glad to see you all here. And Lisa, one of the questions that I have is related to the current documentation for tests. For example, as a senior as that or something like that, but more confident with the automation and the code documentation itself, in my last opportunities, I'm creating like a good code documentation for the tests, like describing it as much as I can and trying to share with the devs and try to work from the unit level to the integration level or end to end and so on. But for example, for 1 year or more, I'm missing the part, for example, to create the test cases in TestRail, for example. I was not creating that part of the code and the administrative part of my current setup. But if you look on the code, it's totally correct and it's totally understandable for everyone, either for the business team or the development team. So I would like to know what do you think about this part of the thing. And thanks.
So about writing documentation or about documenting your tests so that they're readable to everybody?
Yeah. For example, in your point of view, what do you prefer? Like writing a good documentation in an external tool or Confluence page and something like that, or inside the code?
My personal preference is to have really readable code, because that's a sign of maintainable code and robust code. But also that's one reason I like using tests to guide development, both at the unit level and the business facing tests at the API or service level and UI level, because those can be living documentation. So if we do behavior-driven development or acceptance test-driven development or specification by example, where we ask our business stakeholders for concrete examples of how should each feature behave, we turn those into executable tests. So it helps us build the shared understanding of what code we're about to rate. And then when we automate those and put them in our CI, they become living documentation. And I was just telling somebody this yesterday at work. I've actually been on a team at a financial services company where we had auditing requirements, or regulatory requirements, and we had regular audits, and we showed the auditors the output from our Jenkins CI, which included our unit level tests, our API level tests, and our UI level tests. And we had like narrative built into our tests, and it was really clear. Here are the inputs, here are the expected outputs, here are the actual outputs. And the auditors were thrilled because it showed exactly how the code works. So, and the other thing is, if you're having trouble getting time to automate tests, maybe the managers don't understand the value of automating tests, then you can say, well, how about if I spend time documenting? And the way you document it is to write the test. So that's my personal preference. But that doesn't mean I don't value other kinds of documentation. You just need what you need for your context.
Yeah, thank you for explaining.
These are great
Lisa,
questions.
yeah. Just one more question about this slide. For some reason, it's catching people's attention, which is great. So in this one is from people watching from YouTube. And just to let you know, we have more than 70 people watching us from YouTube.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's great. So Marlon is asking, Lisa, is there an ideal health balance between performing testing and helping non-testers to learn to build quality in? I guess might be related to the time you're going to spend as QA. I'm not sure if it's that you got it right.
Yeah, that we never have enough time, right? One of the things that I have done, and I've done this probably on 4 different teams, is if there, for example, let's say there are no automated regression tests, so you would spend all your time doing manual regression testing. I write the manual regression test scripts, and at the end of when we get near the end of the iteration or sprint, I get everybody on the team and hand out scripts and say, okay, we're all going to do this regression testing. So whether it's developers, product owners, Scrum Master, database person, operations person, we all have to do that manual regression testing that nobody wants to do. And that means that it's not only the tester feeling the pain, everyone feels the pain, and they're quite motivated to start automating tests. So I think keeping things visible, making sure everybody shares the pain where we're lacking testing, and get people really focused. And the same thing in planning meetings, the first question I always ask when we start to work on a new story or talk about a new story is, how will we test it? And then the next questions might be, because we have to think more about testing, we know we can't test everything before we release. Our test environments are not just like production. There are things we'll miss. So what are we going to log so that we can monitor? What alerts do we need? What events do we need to capture so we have observability when something goes wrong in production? So those are the kind of questions we need to ask in the planning meeting. So just getting everybody thinking about it and having it kind of top of mind as they work. That's a good way to start, I think. Does that help?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, Marlon is probably watching us from YouTube, so he won't be able to confirm, but I believe so.
Okay.
And just one more question from YouTube as well, from Fabio. This is in Portuguese. I hope I'll get the right translation, but basically he's asking, Lisa, why do you think that nowadays it's still important to convince that client is the most important thing? I think
why is it still important to realize that it's the customer who would judge the value? I just think that teams get so focused on cranking out the features and delivering the features, they're more responding to their managers and trying to please the business, and that they don't always think to look out and see what are the customers actually doing. Now, if you have a really good product organization that's already looking at those analytics and using that to drive what they're asking for, then you don't have so much of a problem. But I think it's really important to get involved with the people who are looking at the analytics if you can't look at them yourself and get that kind of feedback. And remind, I'm always asking the business stakeholders, what's the purpose of this story? What do you hope to achieve? What's the value to the customer? So that we can focus on that. And I tell you, there have been many times when I ask the product owner, what's the purpose of the story? How will you know when we put the story in production? How will you know we succeeded? And they don't have an answer. They don't know, which I think is a real problem. So I think that's a good way to start some conversations. Wait, as QAs, we're question askers. So ask questions.
Yeah. And we got one more. that one is from the.
I don't know how much time we have. I haven't even finished my slides, but I don't have very many.
Oh, okay. Maybe we can. I can ask that at the end if we still have some time. Is
I just have a few slides left.
Okay, sure.
Because I don't even know what our ending time is. So
8
yeah,
o'clock,
we talked about enjoying.
1 hour late.
Oh, okay. We got plenty of time then. So yeah, don't follow these principles blindly, just use them to guide. So all these questions you're asking me, when you have these kind of questions on your team, just look at the principles and see, is there anything in these principles that can help guide us? Like, we have to come up with a solution for something. What's the simplest solution we could try? Keep it simple. So that's an example, how to use these principles. What else did I want to say about this one? Well, actually, I don't have very much left at all. So these are the principles, and think about the ones that resonate with you the most, that are the most interesting to you. Maybe you didn't consider them before, or maybe there's some you don't agree with. If you want to share those in the chat or talk about those, that would be fine. And I will share these slides with you, and you can see the modern testing principles at moderntesting.org, and you can see our agile testing principles at agiletester.ca. But I can share these slides with you too. And so again, be sure to get in touch with me afterwards, and I'm just going to show you. I have these links here to help you, so you can look at the slides for that. And I just have another donkey picture here, but I'm going to go back to the slide with the principles on it. So yeah, more questions.
Yeah, actually, we got one question from Denise that I believe might be related to that, because she asks, what kind of abilities, capabilities, and attitudes do you believe that QA needed to have?
What kind of abilities does a QA need to have?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think there's not just one set of them, because I think what each of our teams needs diverse skills and diverse backgrounds and experience. But generally, I think what's most important are what Janet and I call the thinking skills. Some people call these soft skills. I don't like that, because soft makes it sound like they're not as valuable. One of my coworkers says, well, we have hard skills and harder skills, which instead of soft skills, he says harder skills. So communication skills, my experience is that most bugs really are a miscommunication. Maybe the product owner didn't explain very well what they wanted, or maybe we just didn't understand what the customer wanted. Maybe we just had a miscommunication as we were working on the story, and we didn't build the right thing. So communication is important, but I see managers sending their programmers to classes to learn how to code or use coding tools rather than classes to learn how to communicate better. So I think communication skills are really, really important. Thinking skills, problem solving skills. So a lot of these things are kind of hard to train. And when I hire a tester, I look for people with a kind of a growth mindset or agile mindset, that they just have a great attitude. They love to learn. And because on agile teams, you may be doing a lot of things that aren't traditionally what a tester does. Just the willingness to take on anything and to help the team in any way that you can. So that attitude and mindset, I think, are really, really important. But as far as regular skills, I just think, like I say, some kind of not necessarily coding skills, but understanding coding patterns and practices well enough to be able to follow code, can talk to a developer, use the IDE integration development environments. So you can look at the production code and look at the test code and collaborate with people. I think that's really important. Business domain knowledge, I think that's maybe number one. I think that we ought to represent the customers and the customer point of view and the big picture. How is our whole product helping the customer? And to do that, we have to understand the business domain. And that's one of my favorite parts of being a tester, is learning the business domain. And depending on your industry, it might be learning a lot of government regulations. It might be just learning a really complicated product. I've worked with developers who only knew the little part of the code they worked on, and they couldn't even use the product. So we have to bring that big picture knowledge.
Yeah, and there is another question related to the principles. What is the best way to start applying the principles?
Like I say, I think just let them guide you. So the next time that you're faced with a problem on your team or a problem that you're having, look at the principles and see if there's any principle that can help you start taking some steps to solve that problem. It might be have courage. It's like, even sometimes it takes courage to raise a problem or ask a question. And responding to change. Well, maybe the product owner is changing the requirements on you as you've already started working on a story. Well, we have to embrace change, but we can't have complete chaos. So how can we find that balance? And just using those principles to kind of guide you.
Yeah. And as a Scrum Master, I also have one suggestion here, because as a QA, you are totally free to share this. For example, even this slide or these principles with your team. Could be during the retrospective, or just set a 30 minutes meeting, maybe 15 minutes meeting. Just hey guys, I want to show something I learned today. I want to present to you the Agile testing principles and provide the list. And then just doing let's say a dot voting. Just ask people, your team, to say which are the principles you guys consider most valuable, and then get the feedback from the team. And then, okay, you think that we need to have courage? Okay, let's start from that. So you can also use the retrospect, create action items, and work with the team. So you create kind of a collaborative work, right? Just one suggestion about that.
Oh, I love that idea. That's really a great idea. And with the modern testing principles, I think that it does make an interesting discussion point, because I think they are kind of challenging.
Yeah,
like everyone can test. What if people think about that?
Yeah, and we are talking about modern testing. We also we have one question that I believe is related to the business first, and the question is, how can the QA help improve the business when QAs are not invited to join the discovery or inception stage? I mean, early stage in the software development, where QAs should be there, but they are not invited for many reasons. So do you have any thoughts about that, Lisa?
Well, I do, and I've often just invited myself to those meetings and elbowed my way in. That was easier to do in an office where you could just find the meeting room. But I would definitely, look for your allies. So the way to influence people within your organization, no matter what happens, you're not going to get everyone to agree with you. There's always going to be somebody who's never going to agree. But there's also always going to be somebody who maybe thinks the same as you do. So look for your allies and start there. And then when you have one person, then the two of you can kind of think, oh, who else can we get to listen to us and maybe get them to help us get something changed. So I kind of lost the thread of that question, but what were we talking about?
Yeah, no, it was more like because we have that, sometimes we have that challenge about, getting QAs involved at an early stage.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the early, getting to those early design meetings.
Yeah.
So maybe you can make friends with one of the designers and then say, hey, and I've done this before. Hey, do you think you can get me invited? I've just started my new job a month ago, and one of the other testers mentioned that they have design meetings, and so I asked one of the designers that works with our team, can I come to one of your design meetings? And she said sure, and she invited me. So yeah, people may be actually excited that you're interested, and they may not realize it. And sometimes it's kind of a ask forgiveness rather than permission. So just get yourself in there, and then if somebody is mad about it, then you can say, oh, I'm sorry. But I think sometimes that could be a good philosophy.
Good. Thank you, Lisa. So just to have an idea, do we still have some time for more questions? There is, is there anyone here from Zoom that want to ask any question to Lisa? Lucy, Lenny, yeah, please feel free. If you want to open your microphone, or you can just type, I can ask on your behalf, that's fine.
Put that resources slide in case anybody wants to. Oh, I forgot to change this from the French version, but the quick tools for agile testing, there is a Brazilian Portuguese version and other languages for the people here from other countries, Spanish, and I think we have 13 or 14 languages.
Oh, I can see another family face. Hi, Alessandra.
Hey, hello everyone.
Nice to see you again.
Miss you everyone, and good. Yeah, I kind of, not exactly a question, just wanted to come back a little bit a question that we had before and point a little bit more on that. When Lisa was talking about the balance between the time that we as QE are working on our tasks and testing our things, and also helping the non-QE person on the team, or like the non-testers, to improve and also like learn more related to quality. And one thing that we're seeing on our team is like, as much time as we spending help the non-QE, the non-testers people, more time they will spend on increasing quality, being that working on unit tasks or like fixing UI tasks that break on their branches or things like that. That helps me to reduce my time working on manual testing or exploratory testing on some other things, because those are covered by different types of testing. And that's something that works great in terms of balance, right? Because we are adding quality on other steps of the process, not only in the automation or in the manual testing. So finding that balance with your team, it's great. So it brings a lot of good things.
Oh, that's really great to hear. Yeah. And and it's all about, for me, it's all about just experimenting, trying new things, but small steps at a time. And it sounds like you've had a great success in doing that. And I mean, it's definitely, there's problems if you don't, like, the teams I've joined that didn't have any test automation, we're not going to make very much progress until we can automate our regression tests, and then we have time for other types of testing that are really, really important and valuable.
Is that let me see. Oh, we got one question in the chat about specialist tests. Okay. I think Lisa, it means when for example you work in a company where they have silos. So you have the software development silo and the QA silo. So the QA is not part of the development team. So yeah, I think I'll just get some. I think the question is that okay if you think that is something that we should be doing, or maybe work in a different in the different structure?
Yeah, I just feel like, you know, reach out as much as you can, get involved with the other teams. Maybe, you know, I think a lot of times it can be great to ask somebody for help. So maybe ask somebody on a developer team, oh, could you come and explain to our testing team, can you give us an overview of the system architecture, for example? Or ask an operations team, oh, can you come and explain our continuous integration or our deployment pipeline or how we monitor things in production? So asking people to come and help educate you that's kind of a sneaky way to make friends with them, because once they've helped you, then they think they're your friends, because otherwise why would they help you? And so you start to build a relationship. So try to build those relationships. I as I say, I just started a new job, and you know, definitely I'm on a cross-functional team, but we do still have some silos. Our operations people are mostly on a separate team. Our database people are on a separate team. And so what I've done is to ask people, hey, can I book a 30-minute one-on-one with you? As soon as I know, you know, as I learn who people are. And they're always happy to do that. And some of them, they've said, yeah, let's meet every 2 weeks. Let's make it a regular thing, or let's meet once a month. And so it's been really great. Like last week, I was asked to help with a project to migrate one of our products to a new tool set, basically a new infrastructure for deployment. And so the developer working on it, he's got a limited knowledge of it, and he asked me if I could help figure out how to test it. Well, I had a meeting that I had previously scheduled, like a standing meeting with somebody on the operations team who that's what he was working on, was these particular tools, this infrastructure that we were going to migrate to. So I already had the meeting scheduled, and so I spent the whole meeting asking, you know, picking his brain. Well, how should we test this, and what should we test? And because I made an effort to build those relationships outside my team, I was able to get help really easily. So, so even if you have cross-functional teams, you could still have those kinds of silos, and just building those relationships is really important. There's a book that I'll put in the chat called A Practical Guide to Testing and DevOps by Katrina Clokey. And she spends a lot of the book explaining how to build these different kinds of relationships and how important it is. This is on LeanPub. No, that's not how it spells your name. Yeah, that is. So you can go download that from LeanPub. But it's got a lot of great ideas on how to do that.
Cool. Thank you, Lisa. Do you still have time for one more question? Because I see Marcia want to ask one. Hi, Marcia. No.
Yes, I'd like to ask a question for Lisa. Hey, how are you guys? Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Marcia.
Hey, nice to meet you. Hey, I'd like to see, in your opinion, how do you see the future of QA from the next years? What can we say from the newborns?
Well, I do feel like that Alan Page and Brent Jensen with their modern testing, I think that it's going to take a long time. Maybe it won't be in the next few years, but I do think they have a good handle on where testing might be going, because I do see a trend for fewer testers on a team supporting more developers, and that takes a different approach. So I think that'll happen. I think it'll happen very slowly, though. I don't think the way we work now is going to change that quickly. And I think that I hope, this is where I hope that it's going. In the last few years, I've been quite interested in continuous delivery and been lucky to work on teams that succeeded with continuous delivery. But to make that work, we need really good observability in production. And observability is simply the ability to, once some problem has happened in production, that you can go ask questions of your production system by looking at the events that you have written to some observability tool using your telemetry. Open Telemetry is an open source project that a lot of companies are adopting and a lot of vendors are supporting to capture these events so that you can see, oh, we had this error in production. Let's follow what that user did from start to finish until they got that error, and it helps us diagnose the problem. We can't think of everything, so we have a lot of unknowns. Things happen in production. We didn't have an alert for it, even if we had good monitoring, because we didn't expect it to happen. We didn't know it would happen. We don't know what our customers will do. We don't know all the things that'll happen. There's so much unexpected. And so having the ability to just be capturing, we have all the tools that let us just capture all the data in case we need it. And then we can start asking good questions. And it's basically a form of exploratory testing in production. Chaos engineering, that's something I have not done personally, but people who I know who do chaos engineering, where you have a safe enough production system to where, or you do it in your staging or test environment where you could take a server down or delete a database table, doing something crazy and making sure your system is resilient. That's a form of exploratory testing. And testing in production, scary words. I think that we're going to have more and more of that because we can do it safely. We can use release feature toggles or feature flags to keep things turned off for most of our users. Maybe we turn them on only for ourselves in production so that we can keep testing them. Or maybe we do a progressive rollout or a canary release where, okay, we're just going to turn this on for 10% of our customers and watch our monitoring and make sure that we don't see a lot of errors. And if it looks good, we'll keep rolling out. If not, we'll just turn that off. So we have things like blue-green deploys where we have 2 production systems running, and we can deploy our new changes on one production system, flip our DNS to point to that. If something bad happens, we just flip back to the old one. So very quickly, we don't have any customer pain, or we can really shorten the time that customers might feel pain and have more confidence and more safety in rolling changes out frequently to production. And I think testers need to get involved with that. It's kind of the right side of that DevOps loop. I think that's where we need to get involved. And I hope that more of us will push to get over that side.
This, I think that will be our final question, considered the time. So
okay.
The question is, how do you see test automation within an agile context due to its complexity? I think it might be about, I guess the question is about complexity of test automation considering agile context, let's say working with sprints. Maybe that's the idea of this question, not sure.
How do we deal with test automation? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, how do you see test automation within an agile context due to its complexity?
I just feel like we have to do that test automation along, it has to be part of our development process. So along with coding, we automate the tests as soon as we can and do our code in a smart way. I like to do kind of a, let's do one single end-to-end thread, not all the bells and whistles, but just the very basic functionality, automate a test for that, and then start adding on our capabilities and keep improving our automated tests. So that way we can start simple and keep adding on. And I got distracted by this George's question about the testing in low-code environments because I was just working for a company that has a low-code product. It's citizen developers compared to professional developers and non-coding BAs, yeah. And we have low-code test automation tools now too, right? That may be one way that we can deal with some of the complexity, is empowering people who don't have a lot of programming knowledge to do some level of test automation or do some level of coding. I just think it's really important to realize it's different in every context. So this is something that each team needs to get together and solve and get everybody on the team involved, because we need the people who are database experts. We need the people who are operations experts. We need the people who are programming experts. We need the testers who know how to design tests well and specify tests. We need the product people with their business knowledge. Customer support people. I've really always tried to, I've done a lot of customer support myself and always try to get them involved because they've got really great ideas. So working as much as we can with all these different people helping out. I think that's a great way to solve problems.
Yeah, that's a great advice, Lisa. So guys, we still have some questions, but yeah, time is up, I would say. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you once again, Lisa. It's been a pleasure to having you here with share your knowledge and experience with our community, not only from Brazil, but also from people around the world. And guys, also people from YouTube, thank you. Yeah, they're very happy. They really enjoyed this your talk. Yeah, so they're looks pretty excited from YouTube. People from YouTube, and just to share that this online event will be available soon from YouTube. So in case you miss it or in case you want to double check anything, please feel free to join us and follow us from YouTube. And that's it, guys. Thanks so much. Really appreciate you. Thank us again, Lisa.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It was a great honor.
Obrigado.
Obrigada.
Thank you,
and feel
everyone.
free to get in touch. I'd love to continue the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Obrigada, Lisa.
Com muito prazer.
Thanks, Guy. See you.
Thanks so much.
Lindo teus Hello Kitty, Moisa.
E tem Mickeyzinho ali perdido ali também.
É, eu vi as Hello Kitty e um Mickeyzinho, que fofo. Ai,
que bom te ver. Tempão, né?
Aham, nossa. Enfim. A gente devia fazer mais uns happy hours e conversar um pouco mais, né?
Eu tava falando um pouco antes ali com a Fabrícia e com a Aline, né? Cara, isso aqui é surreal, assim. Acho que nem caiu a ficha ainda que a gente conseguiu trazer a Lisa para o evento do Goods, compartilhar com a galera, assim. Nossa, sou super feliz,
Verdade. Estamos muito felizes e gratos por tudo.
Para o YouTube aí,
gente. E aí, foi bom? Oi, Alessandra.
Ainda tá gravando?
Para o YouTube aí.
Peraí. Deixa eu encerrar aqui a gravação.
Estamos online. Valeu,